I don't think I ever really believed everything.
And I realized that quite a few of the things didn't hold water.
The actual religions were man-made from wherever.
God? Who's God? What's God?
I think skepticism really is the first step.
Scientific zest and zeal for the real world.
That was it. I was an atheist from then on.
I think anybody should be able to tell a joke about anything. That's just my...
Hi, I'm Red.
I'm Susan.
And I'm Paul.
Yes, and we're on the road to atheism, and we are going to learn Paul's story.
Welcome, Paul.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So in the beginning...
My first encounter, I grew up Catholic.
Yeah, that's what we'd want to know. You're Catholic, and your parents, were they very religious?
No. They went to church. My mother went every Sunday. My father went every 2 years.
Sounds familiar.
And I was a pretty regular churchgoer. My parents were Croatian, and I actually spoke better Croatian than English when I started kindergarten. But along in the 5th grade, the teacher, we used to ask a question of everyone, which was, what are you? When you met a kid in the first day of school, right. What are you? And people immediately knew that meant, what ethnicity are you?
Yes.
Right? So I said, and back in those days, I said Yugoslavian. And somebody would say Italian, somebody would say Irish. And then the Jews would always say, I'm Jewish. And I would always object because I say, that's not a country. Are you Polish? Are you Russian? Well, don't tell me your religion. They said, I'm Jewish. Right? So from that, I knew that there were 5 Jews in my class of 30 people. And the teacher asked for volunteers for a stamp club, an international stamp club. That I always was interested in different countries and stuff. So I joined, and the stamp club became 6 people, me and the 5 Jews. I entered the Jewish culture at that point, Reform Jewish culture. I loved it. I love that culture. I love the directness of the Jews, the fact that in my Catholic culture you could insult somebody and not know it, and all of a sudden there's a feud going on and you don't understand where it came from. The Reform Jews always told you what they were irritated by, about if you did something that irritated them, right? So I gravitated toward that culture and started almost having no non-Jewish friends, and basically became Jewish, but at the same time I was going to church every Sunday, and I was going to confession. And around the time I was 13, I began realizing that I was making up numbers in confession. Like I lied 31 times, I cursed 42 times. I would make an odd number up so that they would think I really thought about it. And around 13, I said, I've got an invitation to 3 bar mitzvahs. I've got 3 invitations to bar mitzvahs, Father. Is it a sin to go into a synagogue?
Interesting. And
the priest said, yes. That stunned me, and I had a choice of giving up 3 bar mitzvahs or giving up Catholicism. And I chose to give up Catholicism.
Interesting.
I've never heard that before.
That's very interesting. And true.
Because I immediately knew I didn't want to belong to an insecure organization, an organization that wouldn't allow you to be exposed to other points of view.
And that's insecurity.
That immediately was my first reaction. What? I went out of the confession booth, didn't even do my penance, whatever it was, 3 Hail Marys, and never went into a church again. Okay. I went into synagogue.
So that was.
And what did your mother say? Because was she still going every Sunday?
Yeah, but I just told her what the priest said, and I said, they weren't very rigid, my parents. As I said, my father hardly ever went to church. My mother went to church, but I had the feeling it was just as it is for a lot of people. It's just a social, cultural thing. It's a thing that they were supposed to do. She never struck me as being a true believer. In fact, this is another kind of funny story. One Halloween, when I was in my 20s, I was working in a drug addiction rehabilitation center that was run by the Catholic Church. And
Can't escape them, huh?
right. And so I asked the priest if I told him I was in a play playing a priest, but that was a lie. Once again, I lied to a priest. And therefore I needed his outfit to dress up as a priest. I needed an outfit. And what it was it's Halloween, and I was going to a Halloween party. So I wanted to go as a priest. So he gave me his outfit. This was Father Giganti. His brother, Frank Giganti, was a well-known mafia.
That's right.
Mafioso up in the Bronx. He pretended he was crazy, walked around in a robe and stuff like that. Yeah. His brother, Vincent Giganti, who also ran for some kind of office, was this priest, and he was a very loosey-goosey priest. And but he loaned me his outfit, and I stopped by my mother's house before going to the party in the priest's outfit, and knocked on the door, and she opens the door. What's going on? I said, I've decided to become a priest. And she didn't look happy. She because she knew it wouldn't fit me. But at any rate, I don't think even when I was a churchgoer, I ever took Catholicism, at least, very seriously. I never took religion seriously. It didn't seem to make much sense to me at a certain point. I enjoyed being with the Jewish culture, and so when they said I couldn't go into their houses of worship, which meant that it had a limitation on my socializing with them, on my relating to them. That I didn't think too deeply about it. It just didn't appear. It just didn't seem attractive to me. I didn't consider myself an atheist because culturally I was Jewish. All my friends were Jewish.
Which I know you're involved in show business, so
comedy,
to speak, comedy. Is there an influence there on the Jewish side?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's why I asked. What is your influence from the Jewish culture?
Jews are very, very entwined in comedy, especially stand-up comedy, which is what I'm very interested in. But Jews are into all kinds of comedy, Norman Lear and all of these sitcoms and stuff like that. A very, very heavy Jewish element.
At what age did you start to get that influence?
Just the Reformed Jewish culture was a very funny and is a very funny culture. They joke around, they kid around a lot. There's a lot of humor in the Jewish culture, which is a big part of what attracted me to that. I'm still attracted to humor.
You mentioned though once you were in the South in a boarding school.
Yes, I got my master's degree at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which turned out to be an excellent, excellent college. But I threw myself into my work and became an excellent student again. But I also accepted the invitation of the people who ran my boarding house to go to Baptist services because they were very strong. The Baptist preachers, they would often have guest preachers. I guess they might have been evangelicals brought into the Baptist church, but they were like performers. They put on a show, and they had passion, and really stirred up and motivated you.
Did you pick up some pointers from that as far as your presentation is concerned?
I already was like that. I mean, but what really struck me, being homesick, was that there were about 200 people in the first service I went to. After the service, and the service was 3 hours. They first did a service, and then they had like classes, school for the kid. They put the kids in somewhere and adults somewhere. When people were starting to split up and go to their classes, every single one of those 200 people came up and shook my hand and welcomed me into the church.
Very social, very
Yes.
social.
Welcomed me into the church, and for
Little did they
a
know.
lonesome boy,
Yes.
that really
That's good.
it lasted. I lasted 6 sessions at that.
6 sessions.
That-
Did
that
that
plus
put you
there
on the
was-
fence where you didn't know which way to go?
And what broke the spell?
Yeah, what happened there?
Well, there was
Good question,
there was
Spell.
a gorgeous girl in the choir that I had
okay.
my eye on, and she left the choir, so I left the Baptist church. No, that's not true. I just, after a while, the baloney of it got to me, or it just didn't. These were, my boarding house people were. What if deacons or what? I don't know what they call
Deacons
them in
of the church, right, yes.
They were big, organizers in the church,
Right.
below the preacher. And across the street from our boarding house was what they called the black girls' dorm. Right? They segregated, at least for the girls, in terms of dormitories. Right? So I would pass by, and again, there was some very good-looking girls in that dormitory. And they had a porch, and I started chatting up one of the girls. I finished and went into the boarding house, and the female head of the boarding house, and I forget his wife's name, but she came over to me and she said, "How can you talk to that girl? Doesn't it make you sick to talk to a black person?" And I thought,
This is Arkansas.
yeah.
Okay.
In the
said-
60s.
In the
This is
60s.
60s. This is
Yeah, but
Clinton's.
what
Yeah.
struck me was the
hometown.
difference between the warmth that I found in her
And the
church
hatred.
and the hatred that she was now projecting to me, You can judge the character of a person, I think, not so much by what they believe as how they treat people who don't believe it, who believe differently.
Yes.
And in a sense, I feel that way about atheism. I would be called, I guess, a liberal atheist. I'm not an angry atheist. I don't think we should mistreat people who are believers and therefore believe differently than us. However, we should defend every time they mistreat us, because that's a sign of their lack of character, not that they believe in God. And I think comedy is a really big part. It started early with the Jewish influence and stuff like that. It's a big part of how I kind of casually slipped into atheism. It wasn't I don't remember, other than that scene in the confessional and leaving the Catholic Church, I don't remember a dramatic moment when I said, "I don't believe in God." Just kind of evolved. I think I broil at anybody that takes things sacredly in a way, therefore, that they can be offended or get angry or feel that you are sinning if you say something that is against their beliefs. And what the beauty of comedy is that, and there are atheists that do have things that they treat sacredly. For example, you can have an atheist that is a super patriot and that gets offended if you don't salute the flag, you don't wear the button on the lapel, or you don't, in some way you indicate that you don't put America first. That isn't me.
Right.
That isn't me. I don't want to treat anything sacredly above humanistic issues and make something so. The Islamists are chief sacred people, sacred believers. If you offend them, they kill you. And you can offend them with a very slight thing, like a joke
That's right.
against one of their.
Or drawing a picture of
Yeah, cartoon.
Exactly.
cartoon.
So Christianity is not that far behind in the sense that I've certainly gotten severely criticized for telling Jesus jokes or Pope jokes or stuff like that. In the same way that Jews, some of the Jews that I met took very sacredly. But for example, there are Holocaust jokes. There are tasteless Holocaust jokes. There are tasteful Holocaust jokes. I'll give you an example of a joke I think is funny, And I guess I put that almost as primary. I don't want to make it sacred. I don't want to get offended if somebody makes fun of the joke. But an old Jewish man wins the lottery, and he's going to win $150 million. And they ask him, what are you going to do with this money? And he says, well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 50 million of that and give it to the American Nazi Party. And they go, what? You, a Jew, are going to give most of your winning or a lot of your winnings to the American? Why on earth would you do that? And he said, well, they gave me the winning number. That's a Holocaust joke. Something, now there's no question that the Holocaust is a serious
thing, yes.
But there is you can even take something that serious and treat it too seriously, where you forget your own humanity to the person that's telling the joke.
Also, right, the person that's telling a joke can make the difference too. If it's a Jew that's telling a joke, no problem. But if it's a person that's not a Jew and they know that, then it could be a different type of feeling with that.
Yeah, although most people say that, and I disagree with it. I think anybody should be able to tell a joke about anything. That's just my perspective. And one of my favorite jokes is what most people would call a Jewish joke. An old Jewish man is dying. He's on his deathbed, and his rabbi is next to him, and he says, Sam, you've been a religious Jew all your life. As you're now going to meet your maker, is there any way I can anything I can do for you? And he says, yes, I would like a priest. The rabbi goes, what? You want a priest? Why would you want a priest?
Guaranteed.
He said, I want to convert to Catholicism. You want to convert to Catholicism on your deathbed? Sam, why now? Why do you want to convert now? Better one of them should go than one of us. and I told that joke at a party that was almost totally, if not totally, Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
I told it in a little room, got a lot of laughter, and they said, oh, that's terrific. But don't tell that to anybody that isn't Jewish, they told me, not knowing that I wasn't Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
But George Carlin is a good example of, I believe, starting to take his beliefs too seriously, in the sense that there were serious problems. God knows today we have some very serious problems going on, and Carlin talked about a lot of those, the bullshit of society, if you will. But he got too angry in the latter part of his career, and the last couple of performances. And George Carlin is my all-time favorite comedian. I found him a little less funny because he didn't conquer his own anger, and that's why you have to, atheist or not, you have to take hold of emotional pain or anger is all self-induced. Mm-hmm. You make it happen. There can be different reactions to the Holocaust. There can be different reactions to somebody spitting at you. There's you're the one
you amplify
that amplifies it, or into something that becomes, in some cases, dangerous. Because what follows anger is physical fights, and what follows that is injury or death. Mm-hmm. And you can control that. And comedy does that. Comedy says, don't take anything too seriously. And that's why it sometimes gets into trouble, right. Because, like Gilbert Gottfried type thing, people use comedy at times when the majority of people around are taking what they're joking about too seriously, or so seriously that they can't tolerate lightness, if you will. Right. The other thing is, I know that you and other people in the association can become scholars of the Bible. My own personal opinion is that I guess because of the way I never read the Bible. I went to church every Sunday, never read the Bible, never had any inclination to, because it just seems like a fairy tale book to me. full of stories that aren't as interesting as a lot of Disney stories or Grimm's fairy tales.
Right, sort of adult fairy tales.
Yeah. I mean, and the silliness is defending the veracity of religion because it's in a book. I see myself slipping into atheism, into non-belief of especially a personal God, almost the way I slipped into not believing in Santa Claus. I don't remember a particular day. In fact, I remember stretching it a couple of years so I'd get 2 presents, one for my parents and
one from
I
Santa
wouldn't
Claus.
let them know that I know there's no Santa Claus. But I don't remember a definite day when nobody came up to me and said, there's no Santa Claus. I just deduced it. After a while, it was a fairy tale. The Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, all of these things we kind of grow out of. And I grew out of the church. And I see it as so silly that I don't engage in, certainly not heated debate, but I don't, well, if somebody says, it's in the book, I say, yeah, but in a way, there's more proof of Santa Claus because have you read the book? 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. This guy actually saw Santa Claus. He was there. The people that wrote the Bible never saw Jesus. That's hundreds of years later.
That's true.
And this guy, he saw Santa Claus on his lawn. It's in the book.
In your life, has there been any problems with your atheism?
I've always been an out atheist at work, because I get amused when people are shocked that I'm an atheist. To me, it's like, you mean you don't believe in Santa Claus? Oh, you have to believe in Santa Claus. I mean, it amuses me that they're shocked when their belief system kind of shocks me. That they continue to believe that. And not these other Easter Bunny and stuff like that. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. And I've always been, because I'm always kidding around and joking, I think people treat me differently as an atheist than somebody that is more serious. I would advise two teaspoons of humor every morning and continue throughout the day, And again, judge people by how they treat people who are different from them. And that goes racially and religiously and belief systems and all of that. And that, whenever somebody verges on giving me a hard time about atheism or about anything else, I recognize, this guy is not a humanist, I mean, I once remember on a job, I was being trained by somebody, and I asked her a question, and she said, I told you that 5 times already. And I said, do you have trouble feeling empathy for stupid people? Turned the problem into hers, because it was. She was dropping her humanity over something that wasn't that important. Nothing is that important to drop your humanity. That's right. The only thing is literal self-defense. Actual self-defense is somebody physically attacking you, but verbal assault should not lead to any kind of fisticuffs or whatever, or dropping your humanity. You should be able to debate. My favorite cousin to this day is a very religious Catholic who is just such a humanist. He just makes me feel so welcome, even though we delightfully debate, and he calls me his communist cousin, because people equate atheism and communism all the time. That's the other thing. I think that this organization, in a sense, provides for most atheists, or for a lot of atheists, the warmth that and support that I felt from the Baptist Church, initially. I wasn't and I'm not looking particularly for a support system. I feel fine as an atheist. I feel it's ridiculous to believe otherwise. What draws me to this club is the level of discourse, and that's why I want to encourage that. The level of discussion that is on a level that I didn't get in the Baptist Church or the Catholic Church. I did get it among the secular Jews, and I still like hanging with secular Jews, but as one of your previous guests pointed out, I think, Reform Jews make the best atheists. They're almost there, there are so many Jews, as he said, that are basically atheists. They just don't think about it, like I did in my pre-atheist period. You don't think about it. You just know that you don't believe, and you're not going to alter your lifestyle. However, there is a difference, and I'm not saying that we need to be harsh with, let's say, conservative or Orthodox Jews. Seem silly to me. They seem silly in many ways. First of all, they dress all in black and heavy overcoats in the summertime, right? And they have these little rituals, which to me suggests something that's very illogical, that there is some sort of anthropomorphic power that wants them to grow their curls and wants them to walk long distances on, again, a lot of the religious point of view, which is very anti-comic, is toward sacrifice, toward suffering. Suffering is is often equated with goodness. If you're suffering, you're a good person.
And that's the same with the Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. More so.
Suffering on the cross for the sake of the good of mankind.
Exactly. You're born in sin and you're doomed. And that's the other thing about some religions. I don't know about the conservatives, but Orthodox Jews don't even consider Reform Jews proper Jews.
Yes.
If an Orthodox girl marries a Reform Jew, it's like, get out of here. It's
Might as well marry an atheist.
Totally rejected. Right. So that to me, again, that's a good way to judge the character of somebody, how they treat the people that don't believe what they believe. Comedy forces everybody to accept mocking everything, including yourself.
Right.
Having humility, having humility so that you will never look down on somebody else. You're the biggest schmuck in the room when you're the comedian. That's what you project.
I think that is the word that will end this conversation as last word, and a very valuable.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.